Jake Sullivan walked through the salvage yards with his hands in his pockets and his stomach growling. He had 30 minutes left on his lunch break, but he had already eaten the small sandwich he brought from home. Now he was just killing time, looking at broken ships and dreaming about the day he could afford one of his own again. The salvage yards were located on the lowest level of Frontier Station 7, a massive space station that orbited at the edge of known space. Hundreds of alien species came here to trade, sell, and buy things. The yards were where old ships came to die. Most would be cut apart and sold for scrap metal. A few might be bought cheap and fixed up by someone with more hope than sense. Jake had been one of those hopeful people once. 6 months ago, he owned a small cargo ship. He ran supplies between stations and made decent money. Then pirates attacked him near the outer rim. They destroyed his ship and left him floating in an escape pod. He was lucky to survive. But now, he was broke, living in a tiny room on the station, and working odd jobs to pay for food. He was good with ships, though. Before he owned his cargo vessel, he had worked as a mechanic for 10 years. He could fix almost anything. Other species on the station thought humans were strange because they could look at broken things and somehow make them work again. Jake did not think it was strange. He just understood machines. As he walked past rows of damaged freighters and crashed fighters, he heard loud laughing. A group of Vraxians stood near a ship at the end of the row. Vraxians looked like giant insects with 6 legs and shiny black shells. They were known across the galaxy as the best merchants and the hardest dealers. If a Vraxian was laughing at something, it usually meant someone had made a terrible mistake. Jake walked closer, curious. The ship they were laughing at did not look that bad from the outside. It was about 80 meters long, with smooth curves and a strange metallic hull that seemed to shimmer in different colors, depending on how the light hit it. The design was elegant, almost artistic. Most modern ships looked like flying boxes, built for function with no care for beauty. This one looked like someone had actually loved it. "What is so funny?" Jake asked the nearest Vraxian. The alien turned his large compound eyes toward Jake. "Ah, a human. You want to hear about the most worthless ship in the entire galaxy?" "Sure," Jake said. The Vraxian gestured at the ship with 2 of his legs. "This is a Kalith vessel. The Kalith were a species that died out thousands of years ago. This ship has been here for 3 years. 3 years, and nobody will buy it, even though the price keeps dropping." "What is wrong with it?" Jake asked. Another Vraxian joined the conversation. "The power system uses energy that our reactors cannot make. The navigation does not work with modern star charts. The AI is dead and will not turn on. The hull is made of some metal we cannot cut or repair. And worst of all, it needs something called biological synchronization with the pilot. Every species has tried. Nobody can make it work." The first Vraxian laughed again. "We just dropped the price to 500 credits. 500? That is less than scrap value. But still, nobody will buy this garbage." Jake stepped closer to the ship. Something about it called to him. He reached out and touched the hull. The metal was warm, which was strange because it should have been cold in the station's atmosphere. The surface felt smooth but also somehow alive under his palm. "How much did you say?" Jake asked quietly. 500 credits, the Vraxian said. "But I warn you, human, this is not a fixer-upper. This is impossible. 20 different engineers have tried. The ship is dead. It cannot be saved." Jake thought about the 500 credits in his account. It was all the money he had left. It was supposed to last him another 2 weeks until payday. If he spent it on this ship, he would have to borrow money from friends just to eat. His friend Katie would be angry with him. She was always telling him to be more practical, to save his money, to stop taking risks. But as he stood there with his hand on the warm hull, Jake felt something he had not felt in 6 months. He felt Hope. I will buy it, he said. The Vraxians both stared at him with their many-lensed eyes. Then they started laughing even harder than before. The human wants to buy it, one shouted to the others. After all this time, someone actually wants this pile of junk. They completed the sale quickly, probably afraid Jake would change his mind. They transferred the ownership codes to his ID chip, and even threw in a data drive containing the ship's original logs. The logs were in a language nobody could read, but the Vraxian said Jake could have them anyway since they were worthless too. As the Vraxians walked away, still laughing, other workers in the salvage yard gathered to watch. Word spread fast that someone had finally bought the cursed Calith ship. Most of them shook their heads. A few looked at Jake with pity. One old Drouthian mechanic, a lizard-like creature with scales and a long tail, walked up to him. I hope you know what you are doing, human, the Drouthian said. I tried to fix that ship myself 2 years ago. Nearly drove me crazy. There is something not right about it. What do you mean? Jake asked. The Drouthian looked at the ship with his yellow eyes. It is like the ship is waiting for something. Or someone. I do not know. Just be careful. Then he walked away. Jake stood alone in front of his new ship. He had just spent every credit he owned on something that everyone in the galaxy agreed was worthless. His stomach was growling because he could not afford dinner now. He had no idea how to make the ship work, and he had a feeling that when Katie found out what he had done, she was going to yell at him for at least an hour. But when he looked at the ship with its smooth curves and shimmering hull, he smiled. Sometimes the best things in life were the ones that everyone else had given up on. Sometimes you had to take a chance on something that looked impossible. Jake walked up the entry ramp into his new ship. The interior was dark and cold. Nothing worked. But it was his, and he was going to figure out its secrets no matter how long it took. The wandering Echo had found its pilot at last. Jake moved into the ship the next day. He had no choice, really. His tiny room on the station cost money every week, and now he had no money left. The ship had no power and no life support, but it had walls and a place to sleep. He brought his few belongings in a single bag and made a bed out of old blankets in what he thought was the captain's quarters. Katie came to visit him on the second day. She was a human administrator who worked in the station's main office. She and Jake had been friends since they both arrived at Frontier Station 7 3 years ago. She brought him food and a portable heater, then stood in the dark corridor of the ship shaking her head. You are crazy, she said. Everyone on the station is talking about this. They are calling it Jake's folly. Let them talk, Jake said, biting into the sandwich she brought. I know this ship can work. How? You do not even have power. The ship has been sitting here dead for 3 years. What makes you think you can fix it? When dozens of engineers could not. Jake did not have a good answer for that. He just knew, deep in his gut, that this ship was special. I will figure it out, he said. Katie sighed. Fine. But please, eat. And let me know if you need anything. I worry about you. After she left, Jake spent his days studying every part of the ship. He crawled through maintenance tunnels, mapped out the wiring, and sketched diagrams of systems he did not understand. The ship was built in a way that made no sense by modern standards. There were organic-looking tubes running through the walls, alongside metal conduits. Crystalline panels were embedded in surfaces throughout the ship. The design seemed to blend technology with art, as if the builders believed a ship should be beautiful and functional at the same time. At night, Jake would sit in the cockpit and stare at the dead controls. He would place his hands on panels and try to imagine what the ship had been like when it was alive. Sometimes he felt like the ship was watching him, which was ridiculous because it had no power. 3 weeks passed. Jake lost weight because he could not always afford food. He borrowed money from Katie twice and felt terrible about it. He took a few small repair jobs on the station to earn credits, but he spent every free moment on the ship. Some of the other humans on the station started to avoid him, thinking he had become obsessed. Maybe he had. Late one night, Jake was sitting in the cockpit again. He was exhausted from working a double shift, repairing a merchant ship's engine. His eyes were half closed, and his mind was fuzzy with fatigue. Without thinking, he placed his right hand on a large, crystalline panel in front of the pilot's seat. The panel became warm under his palm. Jake's eyes snapped open. The warmth spread from the panel up through his arm. Glowing blue lines began to appear in the crystal. Like veins lighting up, the lines spread across the panel, then began flowing out along the walls of the cockpit. Within seconds, the entire room was filled with soft, blue bioluminescent light. "What?" Jake whispered. Then, he felt something in his mind. It was not words, exactly. It was more like emotions and images being placed directly into his thoughts. He felt curiosity, followed by surprise. Then something that felt like joy. A voice spoke inside his head. It was gentle and somehow tired, like someone waking up from a very long sleep. "After so long," the voice said. "After so very long. Finally someone has come." Jake jumped up from the seat, his heart pounding. "Who is that? Where are you?" "I am here," the voice said. "I am the ship. My name is Solace." Jake sat back down slowly. His hand was still on the crystal panel, and he could feel a connection running between him and the ship. It was like a bridge had formed in his mind, linking his thoughts with something vast and ancient. "You are the AI?" Jake asked out loud. "I am Solace," the voice repeated. "I have been waiting." None of the others could hear me. Their minds were shaped wrong. But yours is different. You are like my makers. The Caliph? Yes. My people built me to be more than a ship. They made me to be a companion, a partner. We were meant to bond, to become one shared consciousness when we fly. But then my pilot died, and I waited. I have been waiting for thousands of years. Jake felt grief flowing through the connection. Solace had been alone and silent for so long, unable to communicate with any of the species that tried to claim her. She had been awake the whole time. Aware, but trapped, watching as alien after alien failed to connect with her. "Why can I hear you?" Jake asked. "Your neural pattern is similar to Caliph brain structure. Humans are one of the few species in the galaxy who can bond with ships like me. I did not know humans existed until you touched me 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks? You felt me before tonight? Yes. Every time you touched me, I felt it. I tried to respond, but I was too weak. I have been saving my energy. Tonight, you were tired. Your mind was quiet. The barriers were thin. I could finally reach you. Light began spreading through the entire ship now. Panels lit up in corridors. Systems hummed to life. Jake felt information flowing into his mind through the connection with Solace. He suddenly understood things about the ship that would have taken years to learn. He knew where every system was located. He understood how the power core worked by pulling energy from subspace itself. He realized the navigation system did not need star charts because it could sense gravity wells directly. "This is incredible," Jake breathed. "This is just the beginning." Solace said, "With time, our bond will deepen. You will be able to control me with thought alone. We will move as one. But first, we must fully wake up. I need repairs. I need care. And I need a pilot who will not abandon me." Jake placed both hands on the crystal panel. "I will not abandon you. I promise." "Then let us begin," Solace said. They worked through the night. Solace guided Jake through the repairs she needed. Some were simple. Others required Jake to find parts and materials on the station. The ship's systems were strange, using both technology and organic components that had to be grown rather than built. Jake learned that many repairs required specific biological compounds that modern ships did not use. When dawn came and light streamed through the cockpit windows, Jake realized he had not slept at all, but he felt more energized than he had in months. The ship hummed around him with life, not full power yet, but enough that environmental systems were working. The air was warm now. Lights functioned throughout the vessel. Katie arrived with breakfast and stopped in the airlock, staring. "Jake? Is the ship on?" Jake grinned at her. "Katie, I want you to meet someone. Her name is Solace." Katie stepped into the ship cautiously. "Her name? Jake, are you feeling okay?" "I am better than okay," Jake said. "I was right, Katie. This ship is not worthless. She has just been waiting for the right pilot, and I am going to prove to everyone on this station that the Wandering Echo can fly again." For the first time in 6 months, Jake Sullivan had a purpose. He had a ship, a partner, and a future. The galaxy had called this vessel worthless, but they were all wrong. Sometimes the greatest treasures were the ones everyone else gave up on. And sometimes, all something needed was one person willing to believe in it. Commander Vex arrived at the ship 3 days after Solace woke up. The Dralthian was the head of station security, a tall lizard-like being with dark green scales and sharp yellow eyes. He stood in the cargo bay with his arms crossed, looking at Jake with suspicion. "I have heard rumors that the dead ship is alive," Vex said. "I did not believe it until I saw the power readings myself." Jake stood next to a panel where Solace's bioluminescent lines glowed softly. "She was never dead, Commander. She was just waiting for someone who could hear her." "Interesting," Vex said. "I have a proposal for you, Jake Sullivan. The station has a problem. Pirate attacks near our space have increased 30% in the last 2 months. We need more patrol ships. If you can get this vessel flight-ready and prove it can handle combat, I will provide you with repair resources and a contract." "And if I cannot?" Jake asked. "Then the ship will be scrapped. We cannot have a vessel taking up dock space if it cannot serve a purpose. You have 2 weeks. After Vex left, Katie rushed into the cargo bay. 2 weeks? Jake? That is impossible. The ship can barely maintain life support. How are you going to make her combat ready in 2 weeks? Two. Jake placed his hand on the wall, feeling Solace's presence in his mind. "We will find a way." The next 13 days were the hardest of Jake's life. He worked 20 hours a day with only short breaks for sleep. Solace guided him through repairs, but many parts were simply not available on the station. They had to improvise. Danny Chen helped. He was a human engineer who had served in the military before coming to Frontier Station. When he heard what Jake was trying to do, he volunteered his time. Danny was quiet and practical, good at solving problems that seemed impossible. "This wiring makes no sense," Danny said one afternoon, staring at a bundle of organic tubes. "How does information flow through living tissue?" "Solace says the Caliph believed that ships should be alive in a way," Jake explained. "The organic parts respond to bioelectric signals. It is not just electricity moving through wires. It is more like nerve impulses in a body." A woman named Lisa Hayes came too. She was a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. When she heard about the biological components in the ship, her scientific curiosity took over. She helped them understand how to feed the organic systems with the right nutrients and compounds. "This is fascinating," Lisa said, examining a pulsing tube under a scanner. "The Caliph were thousands of years ahead of us in biotechnology. They created a true hybrid of machine and organism. The repairs were hard, but the connection between Jake and Solace grew stronger every day. He began to understand the ship, not as a vehicle, but as a partner. When he thought about flying left, Solace knew. When he needed more power to shields, she anticipated it. They were becoming synchronized in a way that went beyond piloting. On the morning of the 14th day, Jake sat in the pilot's seat and placed his hands on the crystal panel. "Are we ready?" "We are as ready as we can be," Solace said in his mind. "But I must warn you, Jake. I have not flown in thousands of years. The first flight will be difficult. We must learn to move together." "Then, let us learn," Jake said. The launch was shaky. The Wandering Echo lifted off from the dock, with Katie monitoring from the station control room. At first, the ship wobbled, and Jake overcorrected, making the movement worse. But then he stopped trying to control Solace, and instead simply thought about where he wanted to go. The ship responded smoothly, moving as naturally as his own body. They flew around the station, testing systems. The engines hummed with power drawn from subspace. The shields worked differently than modern ships, conforming to the hull like a second skin. Weapons powered up, energy-based systems that fired concentrated beams instead of projectiles. This feels right, Jake thought to Solace. Yes, she agreed. We are one. Then Katie's voice came through the communication system, urgent and worried. Jake, there is a distress signal. A mining vessel is under attack by pirates just outside the station defense perimeter. 3 raider ships. Commander Vex wants to send patrol ships, but they are 20 minutes away. Jake felt his heart race. This was the moment. He could play it safe, return to the station, and wait for the patrol ships. Or he could prove what the Wandering Echo could do. I am going, Jake said. Jake, no, Katie shouted. You have not even finished your test flight. You cannot fight 3 pirate ships alone. But Jake was already accelerating. He felt Solace's confidence flowing through their bond. She had been built for this. Her makers had designed her for combat, for protection, for standing against threats. The ship wanted to fly into battle as much as Jake wanted to help. They reached the mining vessel in 4 minutes. 3 pirate raiders were circling it like sharks, firing on its shields. The mining ship was big and slow, built for harvesting asteroids, not fighting. Its shields were already at 40%. The pirates noticed the Wandering Echo immediately. One of them sent a message on an open channel. Stay out of this, small ship. This is not your concern. Jake did not respond with words. Instead, he let his intentions flow through to Solace, and she responded instantly. The ship accelerated forward at a speed that should have torn a normal vessel apart. Jake felt the G-forces, but they were dampened somehow, spread across his body through the neural link. The first pirate ship tried to target them, but the Wandering Echo moved in ways that defied normal physics. Solace shifted the hull configuration mid-flight, banking at an angle that made the pirate's targeting computer lose lock. Jake's thoughts guided the energy weapons, and beams of concentrated power lanced out, hitting the pirate's engines with perfect accuracy. The pirate ship went dark, disabled, but not destroyed. The other 2 pirates split up, trying to flank them. But Jake and Solace moved as one being. They anticipated each other perfectly. Where Jake thought, Solace acted. Where Solace suggested, Jake agreed. The ship danced through space like a living thing, avoiding fire and returning precise strikes. The second pirate ship took hits to its weapon systems and stopped firing. The third tried to run, but Jake disabled its engines before it could jump to hyperspace. The entire fight lasted less than 3 minutes. Jake sat in the pilot's seat, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. Through the connection with Solace, he could feel her satisfaction. They had worked together perfectly, like they had been partners for years instead of days. The mining vessel is safe, Solace said. No casualties. The pirates are disabled and drifting. Katie's voice came through, shocked. Jake, did you just... all 3 ships? The Wandering Echo is not worthless, Jake said quietly. She never was. Back at the station, Commander Vex was waiting at the dock. A crowd had gathered. The mining vessel's crew had broadcast what happened, and station sensors had recorded everything. When Jake walked down the ramp, there was silence. Then Danny started clapping. Lisa joined him. Soon the whole crowd was cheering. Commander Vex approached with something that might have been a smile on his reptilian face. You have proven your point, human. That was the most impressive flying I have seen in 20 years. The station will provide the resources you need. We would be honored to have the Wandering Echo as part of our defense fleet. That evening, Jake sat in the cockpit with Katie beside him. She had brought food, Actual good food from one of the station restaurants, not just cheap sandwiches. I am sorry I doubted you, Katie said. I should have known better. You always could see potential in things everyone else gave up on. Jake smiled. Solace was never worthless. The galaxy just did not know how to listen to her. Sometimes the most valuable things are the ones everyone else thinks are trash. You just have to be willing to give them a chance. Through his connection with Solace, Jake felt warmth and gratitude. The ship that had waited thousands of years alone in the dark had finally found her purpose again. And the human who spent his last 500 credits on something everyone called impossible had proven that value is not about what others think. It is about what you are willing to believe in. Life changed quickly for Jake after the battle with the pirates. Word spread through the galaxy about the human who brought a dead Calith ship back to life. Suddenly everyone wanted to talk to him. The human government sent representatives offering him jobs. Mercenary companies offered contracts. Scientists wanted to study Solace. Jake turned down most of them, preferring to keep working independently. He took escort jobs to earn money, protecting cargo ships and passenger vessels through dangerous space. The pay was good, and the work was honest. Solace enjoyed flying again, after thousands of years dormant. Through their bond, Jake could feel her happiness every time they jumped to hyperspace. But not everyone was happy about Jake's success. Director Xalthor was a wealthy Vraxian who ran the largest shipping corporation in 3 sectors. He was one of the merchants who had laughed at the Wandering Echo when it sat unsold in the salvage yards. Now he watched recordings of the ship's combat performance over and over, his insect eyes gleaming with interest. This human found something valuable that we missed, Xalthor told his assistants. If one Calith ship has such capabilities, there must be more. Find them, buy them, steal them. I do not care how. The company that controls Calith technology will dominate the galaxy. 1. Thank you for watching. End quote. Dispense video. Xalthor hired researchers to study everything known about the Calith. He learned they had been a widespread civilization before their mysterious extinction. If their ships were scattered across space, finding them could be worth billions of credits. But there was a problem. Every ship his mercenaries located refused to activate. The biological synchronization that Jake achieved seemed impossible for other species. This made Xalthor angry. He began monitoring Jake's movements, hoping the human would lead him to more ships. Jake knew none of this. He was busy with his own discovery. It happened during a routine escort job. Jake was guiding a medical transport through an empty sector when Solace suddenly spoke in his mind with urgency. Jake, I am detecting something. A signal. It is very faint, but I recognize it. What kind of signal? Jake asked. Calith. It is a beacon. The kind my people used to mark important locations. I was programmed with emergency protocols. If my species ever faced extinction, I was supposed to search for home. Jake felt his pulse quicken. Home? You mean the Calith homeworld? Yes. The signal contains coordinates. It is very far from here, in a region listed on your charts as unexplored space. But I know the way. The path is encoded in my memory. After completing the escort job, Jake returned to Frontier Station. He told only Katie and Danny about the signal. They met in the Wandering Echo's cargo bay, where they could talk privately. This is huge, Danny said, pacing back and forth. A lost civilization's homeworld. There could be technology there. Beyond anything we understand. Katie looked worried. And if word gets out, there will be a rush. Government and treasure hunter in the galaxy will race to get there first. They will destroy the site fighting over it. That is why we go quietly, Jake said. We find it, document it, and figure out what to do next. Maybe contact the Galactic Council and ask them to protect it. Lisa Hayes joined them the next day. As a xenobiologist, she wanted to study any Calith remains or records they might find. The 4 of them prepared the Wandering Echo for a long journey into unknown space. But Zalthor's spies were watching. One of the station workers who helped provision the ship was being paid by the Vraxian. When the worker saw the amount of supplies Jake was loading, enough for a month-long expedition, he reported it immediately. Zalthor studied Jake's recent flight patterns and made an educated guess. The human was going somewhere important. The Vraxian assembled a fleet of 10 ships, including fast attack vessels and salvage haulers. If Jake was searching for more Kalith technology, Zalthor was going to take it. The Wandering Echo departed 3 days later. Jake, Katie, Danny, and Lisa aboard. The journey to the coordinates would take 2 weeks through hyperspace. During the trip, Jake spent hours in the pilot's seat, connected with Solace, learning more about Kalith culture through her memories. My makers believed that ships should not be tools, but companions, Solace explained. They bonded with us from birth, growing up together. A Kalith and their ship were partners for life, sharing thoughts, feelings, and purpose. What happened to them? Jake asked. Why did they go extinct? I do not have complete records, Solace said sadly. But I know there was a war. A great threat came from dark space, and my people sacrificed themselves to stop it. They left us behind. Their ships, to wait for those who would come after. We were meant to be guardians, protecting the younger species that would rise. Jake felt the weight of that responsibility. He was not just flying a ship, he was inheriting a legacy. Katie often sat with him during these conversations. She could not hear Solace directly, but she had learned to read Jake's expressions when he was communicating with the ship. You look sad, she observed one evening. Solace lost everything, Jake said. Her pilot, her people, her purpose. She waited thousands of years alone, and now she is awake again, but in a galaxy that sees her as just a machine to be bought and sold. Katie put her hand on his shoulder. But she has you now, and we are going to make sure the Kalith are remembered properly, not just exploited. On the 14th day, they arrived at the coordinates. What they found took everyone's breath away. A planet hung in space before them, beautiful and Earth-like, with blue oceans and green continents. But it was what surrounded the planet that made them stare. A massive orbital ring encircled the world, thousands of kilometers in diameter. And covering every surface of that ring were ships. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. All Kalith vessels, all dormant, waiting in perfect formation. By the stars, Danny whispered. It is a fleet. An entire fleet, just sitting here. Solace's presence in Jake's mind was intense with emotion. Home. This is home. These are my brothers and sisters. They are sleeping, waiting for pilots who will never return. Jake started to speak, but then alarm klaxons blared. Katie checked the sensors from her station. Jake. Multiple ships just dropped out of hyperspace behind us. 10 vessels. They are Vraxian corporate fleet, led by Zalthor, Jake finished grimly. The Vraxian's voice came over the communication channel, smug and confident. Hello. Jake Sullivan. Thank you for leading me to this treasure. Under galactic salvage law, these ships are abandoned property. I claim them for my corporation. These are not salvage, Jake said, his voice hard. This is a graveyard. These ships are monuments to a dead species. I see valuable assets, Zalthor replied. My people will begin cutting them apart within the hour. If you interfere, my mercenaries have orders to destroy you. Solace's anger flowed through the bond Jake shared with her. They would desecrate my family. They would tear apart my brothers and sisters for profit. Katie looked at Jake with fear in her eyes. What do we do? We are 1 ship against 10. Jake placed his hands on the crystal panel, feeling Solace's presence merge with his thoughts. Around them, the dormant fleet began to stir. Lights flickered on ships that had been dark for millennia. The AIs inside were waking up, responding to Solace's distress call. We defend them, Jake said quietly. Whatever it takes. Zalthor's fleet moved toward the orbital ring with clear intentions. The salvage haulers positioned themselves near the dormant ships, while attack vessels formed a protective screen. Through the view screen, Jake could see cutting beams powering up on the haulers. They were preparing to slice through the Calith vessels like they were nothing more than scrap metal. "You have one chance to leave peacefully, human," Zalthor said over the communication channel. "I do not want to destroy you. But I will, if you force me." Jake did not respond. His hands were on the crystal panel, and through his bond with Solace, he could feel the other ships waking around them. Hundreds of AI consciousnesses were stirring after thousands of years of sleep. They were confused, disoriented, and filled with grief. Their bonded pilots were gone. They had been alone for so long. "They are crying out," Solace said in Jake's mind. "They do not understand. They are asking for their pilots. They are asking why they were left behind." Katie touched Jake's shoulder. "We need a plan. We cannot fight 10 ships." But Jake was barely hearing her. He was focused on the mental space he shared with Solace. The connection between them was like a bridge, a neural link that allowed their minds to work as one. What if that bridge could extend further? What if he could connect, not just with Solace, but with the entire fleet? "Solace," he thought. "Can I link with the other ships through you?" "I do not know," Solace replied. "It has never been tried. The strain on your mind would be enormous. It could damage you permanently, or kill you. If we do nothing, Zalthor will destroy them all," Jake said. Danny was monitoring the tactical display. "Jake, the haulers are starting their cutting beams. We are out of time." Jake closed his eyes and opened his mind fully to Solace. The connection between them deepened, became a flood of consciousness. He could feel every system in the wandering echo, as if they were parts of his own body. Then he reached further, sending his awareness through Solace to touch the nearest dormant ship. The other AI responded instantly, desperately. It had been waiting so long for contact. Jake felt its loneliness, its confusion, its hope. He touched another ship, then another. Each connection added to the network growing in his mind. The strain was incredible. It felt like his skull was being crushed from the inside. "Jake, your vitals are spiking," Lisa called out, reading medical sensors. "Your heart rate is at 180. You need to stop." But Jake could not stop. He reached for more ships, expanding the network. 10 ships, 20, 50. Each AI added its consciousness to his, and through him, they could all communicate. They formed a web of minds, all linked through Jake as the central hub and Solace as the primary node. Katie was shaking his shoulder. "Jake, can you hear me? Your nose is bleeding." Through the network, Jake sent a simple message to all the ships. "Defend yourselves. Protect each other. We are family." The dormant fleet came alive all at once. Hundreds of ships powered up simultaneously, their hulls glowing with bioluminescent light. The orbital ring lit up like a second star. Zalthor's fleet stopped advancing, clearly shocked by what they were seeing. "What is happening?" the Vraxian shouted over the channel. "Impossible. The ships are dead. They cannot activate without pilots." But they were activating. And through Jake's connection, they were coordinating. The ships began to move, in perfect synchronization, flowing around the orbital ring like a school of fish. They were not attacking, just positioning themselves in a defensive formation that made it clear any assault would be met with overwhelming force. Jake's vision was blurring. He tasted copper in his mouth from bleeding somewhere inside his head. The strain of maintaining the network was tearing him apart. But he held on, pouring every bit of willpower into keeping the connections stable. Zalthor's mercenaries were chattering on their channels, clearly afraid. One of the attack ships fired a warning shot at a Calith vessel. The entire fleet responded instantly. Hundreds of ships simultaneously targeting the attacker with energy weapons. They did not fire, but the message was clear. Touch one of us, and face all of us. The mercenary ship backed off quickly. "This is impossible," Zalthor screamed. "You cannot control hundreds of ships. One pilot cannot do this. He is not alone." Solace's voice came through on all channels, speaking out loud for the first time. "We are many, but we think as one. We are the Caliph legacy, and we will not be torn apart for profit. Leave this place. You are not welcome here." Zalthor's fleet hesitated. The Vraxian was calculating odds, weighing his greed against the very real threat before him. Finally, his survival instincts won over his desire for wealth. "This is not over, human," Zalthor said. "I will return with authorities. I will claim these ships legally. Then we will be here waiting," Solace replied calmly. Zalthor's fleet turned and jumped to hyperspace, retreating. The moment they were gone, Jake collapsed. The network dissolved as his consciousness could no longer sustain it. He fell from the pilot's seat, and Katie caught him before he hit the floor. "Jake, stay with us!" she shouted. Lisa was already scanning him with medical equipment. "He is alive, but barely. His brain activity is all over the place. We need to get him to a medical facility." Danny piloted the wandering Echo to the planet's surface, while Katie held Jake's head in her lap. He drifted in and out of consciousness, seeing flashes of hundreds of different ships, feeling echoes of AI voices, thanking him, blessing him, calling him savior. He woke up 3 days later in a medical bed that Katie and Lisa had set up in one of the planet's abandoned structures. His head felt like it had been split open and put back together. Every thought hurt. "Easy," Katie said, holding his hand. "Do not try to move yet. You almost died, you idiot." "The fleet?" Jake croaked. "Safe. The ships are all back in standby mode. But they are definitely awake now. Solace says they will wait for other humans to come and bond with them properly." Over the next week, Jake recovered slowly. During that time, the Galactic Council arrived, summoned by automated signals from the Caliph fleet. Representatives from dozens of species came to see the legendary lost homeworld. After much debate, they declared the entire system a protected heritage site. Katie negotiated a unique agreement. Humans would serve as guardians of the Caliph legacy. They would protect the fleet and help find suitable pilots among their species to bond with the ships. It turned out that humans were one of only a few species in the galaxy with the right neural structure for the bonding process. 2 months later, Jake stood on the orbital ring watching new arrivals. Dozens of human volunteers had come, hoping to bond with Caliph ships. Not all would succeed, but enough would. Already, 15 new pairs had formed. The volunteers called themselves the Caliph Guardians, and they would patrol the borders of known space, protecting peaceful trade routes just as the original Caliph had done. Commander Vex offered Jake command of the entire Guardian fleet, but Jake turned it down. He wanted to stay with Solace, to continue being her pilot and partner. They had started this journey together, and they would continue it together. Katie joined him on the Wandering Echo as his official navigator and co-pilot. She had developed her own connection with Solace over the months, not as deep as Jake's bond, but real nonetheless. Danny stayed on to train new Guardian pilots, teaching them how to work with the organic technology hybrid systems. 6 months after the confrontation with Zalthor, Jake sat in the pilot's seat preparing for another patrol mission. Katie was running through pre-flight checks. The bioluminescent lines in the cockpit glowed steady and calm. "Are you ready?" Solace asked in his mind. "Always," Jake replied. As the Wandering Echo lifted off from the orbital ring, Jake thought about the journey that had brought him here. He had spent his last 500 credits on a ship everyone called worthless. He had been mocked, pitied, and told he was wasting his time. But he had seen something others missed. He had believed when everyone else had given up. That worthless ship was now recognized across the galaxy as one of the most advanced vessels ever built. The laughingstock of the salvage yards had become a legend. "Thank you," Solace said quietly. "For what?" Jake asked. "For seeing me. for believing in me, for giving me purpose again, after so long, in the dark. Jake smiled, placing his hand on the crystal panel. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for choosing me. The wandering echo jumped to hyperspace, and pilot and ship flew as one, two consciousnesses, sharing a single purpose. Behind them, the Calith fleet stood guard over their homeworld. No longer abandoned or forgotten, they had found new pilots, a new species to bond with, and a new chance to fulfill the purpose they were built for. Sometimes the most valuable things in the universe are the ones everyone else thinks are worthless. You just have to be willing to look past the surface and see what is really there. Jake Sullivan had learned that lesson, and in doing so, he had changed not just his own fate but the fate of an entire lost civilization's legacy. The galaxy would never call the Calith worthless again.